But just before we get into what's playing out in Rivers State, let's talk about security in Nigeria, strengthening Nigeria's defense. And we have joining us this morning the Director General of the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, Major General Nedi Edit, is live with us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, General. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Coyote.
Well, General Edit, a lot of people are probably hearing DICON, maybe the younger ones, hearing about DICON for the very first time. And they're thinking, oh, wait a minute, Nigeria is able to produce arms locally. But I understand there's been a game changer with the amendment of the DICON Act. So, General, I'd like you to speak to us about what was obtainable before and what the future looks like now for DICON in terms of production of arms, ammunitions locally to feed not just Nigeria's defense forces, but Africa as well.
Okay, thank you, Coyote. And just saying, you and Jeffrey are doing a very great work. Thank you for inviting me for this very important program here on the Channels TV to discuss a very important topic bordering on Nigeria's future, the issue of military self-sufficiency and the role of local manufacturing involving DICON and other manufacturers in Nigeria. Indeed, perhaps let me just start by saying that DICON itself means Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. Now, our founding fathers in Nigeria recognized that our independence in 1960 would not have bear too much meaning without our self-sufficiency in military and defense systems. And that's why way back in 1964, they thought about and established DICON through an act of parliament with the mandate of meeting the defense material needs of Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies. Ever since we in DICON have been committed to the realization of that mandate through our new vision, which is to be a leading force in defense manufacturing, not just in Nigeria, but the entire African region, leveraging on technology, reliability, and strategic partnership. So this is just a bit about what DICON and the vision of DICON is about. And then you're asking about particularly local manufacturing of arms and ammunition. And so I would say that right from inception, DICON has been involved in manufacturing of arms and ammunition, and indeed other defense systems used by our military and armed forces. We had a an unfortunate civil war between 1967 and 1970. And given that DICON was established in 1964, it was already baptized to produce to support that war effort. And indeed, records have shown that DICON acquitted itself very well by manufacturing and contributing to that war efforts. Ever since DICON has been producing, maybe not in sufficient quantity that the country needs. That's why perhaps I think this topic is important for us to talk about that self-sufficiency and what it means for our national security and national development.
General, let's talk about, I understand DICON, I think 64, that should be about 60 years, if I'm correct. So it's been a long time coming. So let's find out from you, General, what is it that we're able to produce as we speak, before we now get to some of the challenges that that particular sector in the military is facing, because it's quite exciting to see that this is there. So some Nigerians don't even know it is there. And so now they know that there is that manufacturing arm for backward integration of our weapon, because what makes a nation great, besides economy, is how wealthy the nation is, the strength of its military at the end of the day. So what can be produced in Nigeria? What can't be produced? And what can we do to upscale it?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, let me start by appreciating the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mr. President, who barely 6 months in our assumption of office signed the new DICON Act into law. Specifically, that was on the 23rd of November, 2023. I'm sure we are going to be speaking about the DICON Act more in detail in the course of the program. But the DICON Act has indeed opened up what we've been doing before and what we can actually do much more. And so right from beginning, DICON has been involved in producing different calibers of defense systems in terms of small arms, in terms of when I talk about small arms, the pistols, the rifles that are commonly used by armed forces and other security agencies, DICON have been involved in producing for, small arms ammunition too that have been used severally by our armed forces and other security agencies. I don't want to go to specifics of the calibers here. DICON have produced all forms of military items, and not just military items. DICON has also been involved in producing other civilian items to support agricultural endeavors. And a lot of us in Nigeria will recall that salt that was out there in the market back then, the DICON salt. And even DICON also ventured at some point into making furnitures. And so there's a range of products that's been coming out of DICON in the past and even currently. So for today, we are still involved in the production of ammunition. We are still involved in production of arms. We're actually diversifying to, bring in and integrate other military systems in line with the changing nature of today's warfare. So indeed, we have a range of products that are coming out of DICON. But the issue here is, are they sufficient to meet our nation's military needs? The answer right away is no.
And I'd like you to be more specific, General, so Nigerians can understand where we're at and where we hope to be. And it's cheery to hear that, things are moving. I understand there's been some sort of agreement with private company. Perhaps you can speak to that. But in terms of percentage, General, what percentage of Nigerians' military forces are using arms or ammunitions by DICON? And I'm talking, is it 10%, 5%, or 2%, or even more?
All right, thank you, Kayode. I would say yes, DICON is producing currently. Not producing alone, we are producing, in line with the concept of military-industrial complex, we are producing alongside other defense-related industries. We're having an association called the Defense Industry Association of Nigeria that was established by Section 27 of the DICON Act. And so we have there a lot of local industries. We have Proforce, we have Imperium, we have Smart Systems Feet, we have a number and a range of a lot of defense-related industries. The last, over 60 of them, even though we think that can grow more. Comparatively, I've been taking a serious look at the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, and I realized that they boast of almost 2,000 manufacturers. We're envisaging and hoping that going forward, a great number of manufacturers in Nigeria will be sensitized to direct their military, their production efforts to supporting the military-industrial complex. But that said, currently, I would say for sure we're not producing enough to support our systems. And this can be reflected probably by how much of military systems we are still importing. As a DG DICON, I can say I've not been able to supply even up to maybe 10% of the military ammunition that I'm currently producing. That is just the category of what I'm producing due to so many factors I'm sure we'll be discussing in the course of this program. But the point here is that the gap between what we should produce, the gap between our self-sufficiency and our needs is really huge. And I think it calls for a national discourse.
General, let's get right into it without taking too much of time. So if less than 10%, and I don't know if it's up to even 5%, is able to be supplied to our armed forces, then what are those factors? What are those things we need to clear out of the way? Because what we're seeing now is nations are going protectionists, us first before others. So they'll probably want to sort themselves before they think of selling to others. And there's pockets of wars across the world. So there's a lot of demand, right? I'm not sure Nigeria is on the top 10 list of countries that others want to sell arms to. So we need to take care of ourselves by ourselves. So what are those major factors? And you can tie that maybe to the DICON Act, General.
Okay, talking about the DICON Act, yes, like I said, Mr. President signed the DICON Act on the 23rd of November 2023. And that DICON Act has a very reforming prospects for Nigeria's military-industrial complex. It kind of reconsidered the DICON board, made it more robust in Section 4. Section 10 is extremely important because it granted and kind of gave exclusive rights for production of arms and ammunition to DICON. That has always been there. Now, what is the issue about this? The Section 10, because assuming that there's an appetite to buy from outside, that now comes with a lot of other impediments. Now, if you go outside to buy, with just like you alluded, a lot of wars and conflicts across, we are having a lot of situations where you're not buying the right quantity, you might not get the right quality, time is passing, and so we might not be able to render to our forces as often and as quickly as they want it. And there's also a question of foreign policy. How are you sure the country you are going out is disposed to selling for you? And the Chief of Defense Staff, in several interviews in the past, has alluded to this complexity. So the imperative is for us to develop our capacity to produce inwards. And so that was why that exclusive clause was put in there, hoping that efforts will be directed towards encouraging not just DICON, but other defense-related industries to produce inwards. Currently, there's a lot of effort and momentum towards that, but we're still far from it. I know that we launched last year during the DICON at 60. We made a lot of effort to sensitize the country generally about what DICON was in the past, what DICON is now, and where we want to be in the future. And so we, during that event, a 5-year strategy was launched where we thought by Mr. President, who was represented by the Secretary to the Government or the Federation at that event. And then we hope that this 5-year strategy that was launched was going to lay the groundwork for the country to strategically begin to look at how to empower DICON and Nigeria's military-industrial complex towards enhancing their self-sufficiency. But for now, it's still work in progress. We have a summit coming up in April, May, to just assess the first aspect of the implementation of this strategy. How far have we gone? We just need to, start walking the talk as soon as possible. And we want to appreciate Mr. President. We want to appreciate the Chief of Defense Staff, who has been very passionate in pushing me, and in fact, the service chiefs who encourage, they've been in the forefront of encouraging indigenous production recently.
So, General, let's say in the next 5 years, I'm asking generally now, what can be done to scale? I'm very particular about scaling because, as my colleague Kayode has said, protectionism appears to be the new language of states across the world. They can close their door whenever they want, and there's nothing we can do about it. They can open their doors, well, it will be a welcome development. But we'll just leave us assuming that they are not there. What can be done in the next 5 years in terms of resources, financial and material resources, to be able to scale to beyond at least 10 to 15% of our local manufacturing needs as far as our weaponry is concerned?
All right, thank you. So the first thing is to accept the truth. And the truth is that it's going to be difficult to have anybody out there spend a lot of money on their research and development and then hand over those technology to you so willingly. Again, they see us in Nigeria as a military market. And so if they are producing, the top 10 producers and exporters of arms and ammunition may not even be at war at the moment, statistically. So what are they producing for to sell to us? So we are mindful of this, and we understand that technology transfer has to be put in the context of us working backwards, backward integration and reverse technology. So mindful of that, we are choosing our partners strategically. Now, what can be done in the next 5 years? Like I said, this strategy was launched last year, trying to lay the pathway for where we should be, at least in the next 5 years. So the first part of that strategy had to do with innovation, ramping up innovation and technology within DICON and the military-industrial complex. We are revisiting our production lines. I must say a number of them have gone obsolete. We're just resilient in DICON. We don't want to just sit down and say, look, we are having old systems, we're not producing. So it's like using the old hoe and tool to go back to the farm. So we are using, we can see the production lines. Those technologies are not being used again. And so what that does is that we are attempting to produce, but we're not producing as much as we want to do and give it as fast as it is. So one of the strategies is for us to get new lines. And of course, this involves funding. We have, under the guidance of the Ministry of Defense and the strategic guidance of the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, Dr. Bello Matawale, we have carefully selected our strategic partners. We're at the point where we're going to sign contracts and get this partnership funded for us to have new lines. We are also, part of our strategy is also to build manpower, the gap. There is a big manpower gap in technology, not just in DICON or military industrial complex. Anybody that is trying to establish a new industry in Nigeria will do that. The first thing you need to resolve, you go around is, how do I equip them? How do you not just attract the skills and technology, how do you retain skills and technology? So we're doing so many things at the same time, and we're doing them rapidly so in line with this strategy to make sure we're where we want to be. So manpower development is key to this strategy, and then strategic partnership is also key to this strategy. So I say that there are a lot of things we know. We have a robust resource of engineers, technicians in Nigeria, but we need to learn from people that have been in the forefront of this technology. We need to learn from the people that have been selling to us, but not just everybody, the right set of people to make sure that we can, with time, retain this technology. So all these are encompassed and bunched up in this 5-year strategy. We're just in the phase of that strategy, which in the next first 2 years, between January 2025, we hope to revisit and say maybe by mid-year 2026, want to reassess and see where we'll be. But there's a long way for us to go in terms of this.
All right, General, I want to get clarity on this issue. So there's this company, and I think I mentioned earlier, DICON Gray Insignia, and it's set to be a Nigerian-owned defense contracting company with a joint venture with DICON. And I can see here that the company is able to produce pistols, submachine guns, battle rifles, sniper rifles. Is that also accommodated in your current production capacity? Perhaps you might want to speak to that production capacity. But really, what is the deal here? How does it work? And when you ask for maybe capacity from other manufacturers, are you saying that you're open to also working with other manufacturers? And what would that look like, really?
Okay, thank you, Kayode. So Gray Insignia specifically is a Nigerian-owned company. They've been building capacity in manufacturing of arms and small arms. As a matter of fact, they have very encouraging and very, very encouraging technology in arms production, small arms production. Recently, that company, in partnership with DICON, Ministry of Interior, were involved in an exhibition in the United States where they took a stand and were showcasing our country's capability in terms of small arms production. But the question here is buy-in. The question here is the local support. The question here is patronage. And so companies like Gray Insignia, there are so many of them that I mentioned, over 60 of them that are defense-related industries in Nigeria, need to be encouraged. They need to be patronized. They keep asking for, guarantees in terms of, quantities that, kind of specific quantities that they should guarantee their production. So these are the discourse and things that we're doing currently. Now, what we're doing in DICON, we are currently, by the act of establishment, we are currently producing. But DICON is also transforming to take up the important role of regulating production and defense acquisition in the military-industrial complex, as provided by the DICON Act. So in terms of regulation, this is a very important aspect, and this resonates directly to the question you're asking, Kayode. Because the space, the military-industrial complex, where you have players like Gray Insignia dealing in arms and ammunition, arms for now, and other companies like Proforce dealing in mine-resistant ambush patrol vehicles, and then you have companies like SmartFit dealing in personal protective equipment, and so many of them. we need to regulate such a space to ensure that not only standards, but the wrong things don't get to the wrong, I mean, the right equipment don't get to the wrong hands.
Right.
And so that's why we're currently working to regulate. We just established a DICON regulatory office here in Abuja. And then very soon, under the strategic direction of the Chief of Defense Staff and the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, we are going to bring out the new defense defense licensing regulation, which very soon that is going to come out. And I'm sure that is going to be launched in the summit we're envisaging for April and May. Now, what that regulation will do is to license, because for now we just have pieces of memorandum of understanding between companies like Insignia you mentioned, and many of them, but want to move into what will be regarded as best practices and be able to, license people that are into defense procurement and production, because it's a highly regulated space. And so that is going on already. So Insignia is just one out there, but there are so many of them that I can speak to. They are doing so many great things, but they need that off-taking guarantees. They need those encouragements. They need that patronage in one way or the other for us to be able to have a viable military-industrial complex, Cardi.
General, we have to thank you for your time. A few takeaways here. It's not really cheery to hear that we're still doing less than 10% of locally made arms and ammunition. Again, it depends on what the firepower of the enemy is, but I imagine we can do better. And that talks about budgeting. What is the preference when we are budgeting for these things? Are we going for made outside of the country over made in Nigeria? And I really hope we're also thinking of the future. So beyond just arms and ammunition, I hope we're producing drones, and the rest. But Major General Aniedi Edet, we have to thank you so much for at least giving us an insight in the workings of DICON. We're going to have you very soon again to explore some more areas. We've been speaking with the Director General, Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, Major General Aniedi Edet. Thank you for your time, General.
Thank you so much, Cardi. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to encourage us to patronize our local products. Thank you and God bless.
Well, there you have it. So this cuts across patronize Made in Nigeria. But we're going to Made in Rivers politics right after this break. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us.